Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday, Testy Tuesday. It's a glorious morning right now, and just have to share with you that something had happened on the way taking our grandson Logan to work this morning. We left in the rain. It was coming down pretty good. But as we're going further toward the east, direction we're driving, you could see that it was all clearing out and coming this way. So it was kind of backwards. Normally it goes west to east. This was coming east to west. But because of that, the sun's rays were popping through in the midst of the rain that we're driving through. And there was a glorious rainbow in the sky. Normally you don't see that sort of thing in the morning, but it was just a beautiful, beautiful sight. So a lot of beautiful things going on in our it's our first lesson for Sunday. It's from the book of Acts, the 16th chapter. Now, for the last chapter or so, we've been reading a lot about Paul. Remember Paul, who was Saul? Same person. And he's been bouncing around a lot of the different areas in Galilee and around Jerusalem, but he's been moving outside of that area too. From this point on, in the book of Acts, it's Paul's ball game. You're going to hear about him. The other disciples, they kind of fade into the background. They're still doing their work. It's not the emphasis from the book of Acts. Okay, now you have that. Well, that's what's happening in our text for this Sunday. Paul is traveling to a certain place, and we're going to see just how that occurred. But he meets up with a woman. And I want you to kind of tell me who this woman is. I'm just going to give you one more hint that it might help you out here. He had received, Paul, a vision to go to Macedonia to spread the gospel there. And this is where he meets this woman. Who is the woman? All right, here's your choices. Are you ready? Is it Chloe? Is it Lydia? Is it Rebecca? Or is it Syntyche? Chloe, Lydia, Rebecca, or Syntyche? So after you make that guess, then we're going to have part 2. See if you can get this one too. All right. The correct answer is Lydia. Yeah, now Chloe and Syntyche are two people he's going to meet up with later and mention them in his letters. And Rebecca, I just threw that in there, Old Testament stuff. So, okay, Lydia. But now, what was Lydia involved in? And remember, Paul met up with her when he was traveling over toward Macedonia? Okay, was she involved in divination? Was she a dealer in purple cloth? Was she a temple prostitute? Or was she just a poor widow struggling to survive? I think some of you had the answer to this. The answer is she was a dealer in purple cloth. Now, just to let you know what's going on here, divination, that's going to be the next story in the book of Acts. He deals with another woman who was involved with that. As far as the temple prostitutes, yeah, they were everywhere in the Roman world. And the last one being the poor widow struggling to survive, yeah, they were everywhere in the Roman world. I mean, it's just the way things were. But no, she was a dealer in purple cloth, which meant she was well-to-do. She had some bucks in her back pocket or purse or whatever she put the money. All right? Because purple cloth was hard to come by. The dye to make the cloth purple had to come from a particular type of shellfish, and you needed a lot of them to do it. And that's what made it so valuable and expensive. And only the elite are the ones who would be wearing purple. So she had quite a good business going. Now, how does she fit into the story? Well, remember how I keep telling you, read everything, So when you're reading Acts, read the whole chapter, not the whole book. Yeah, read the whole book, okay? But read the whole chapter 16 to get a flavor of what's happening. In the very beginning of the chapter, you see Paul, as he's traveling or preparing to travel, he's kind of moving here, moving there, but he says some really weird stuff like the Holy Spirit prevented us from going here. And then a little bit later, the Spirit of Jesus prevented us from going there. And it's like, what do we do? Isn't it interesting that sometimes God's plans aren't always our plans, and God puts those roadblocks up? You know, we have the saying, one door closes, be looking for the other one that's opening up, you know, because it does open up. But sometimes you keep running into closed doors. That's what was happening to them. And then he gets this vision, this dream of a man from Macedonia saying, hey, you got to come over here and preach the gospel. Now remember, it's a man from Macedonia. So when Paul and Barnabas get moving, actually, it's not Barnabas now. Paul and Barnabas split. They had a disagreement over who they were going to take with them. So it's Paul and Silas who are now going. And they go, they figured, you know, there's not a very big Jewish population out here, so there probably isn't a synagogue anywhere, and there wasn't. So what did they do? They went to the place where there would be a prayer meeting. There was in the Jewish law a deal that said, okay, if you had 10 Jewish men, you build yourself a synagogue. If you don't have 10 Jewish men, if you had less than that number, what you would do is you would establish a place of prayer. And there you could still discuss things about the law, and you would pray and have your worship services. But you would usually do that near a source of water, running water, like a river, a stream, could even be alongside a lake. So it was a matter of, okay, that's where we're going to go. And that's where Paul and Silas went. Only they found the prayer meeting, but it was run by a woman, Lydia. Can you beat that? Okay, especially in that day and age. But remember, now we're moving into a higher culture, if you will. It might be a little more progressive than what they found back in Jerusalem, because women did hold a more esteemed place in society. Not that much higher, but it was still higher than what you found culturally back in Jerusalem. And it was Lydia who was leading the meeting. And when they came, she invited Paul and Silas to do the talking. And they were talking about Jesus, because at this point Lydia was described as being a worshiper of God, which is kind of code throughout the New Testament for non-Jewish people who have a real interest in the God of the Jews, Yahweh. And so he begins talking about Jesus, and all these women who are gathered there for prayer become believers. And Lydia and her household, at least it mentions that, they are baptized. We don't know about the other women, but we're assuming that they were as well, or maybe a lot of them. Now, the whole thing is just filled with intrigue. The fact that in the vision, it was a man saying, come on over. And who do they meet up with? A woman. That's just kind of an interesting thing there. A woman who was probably pretty well-to-do and had a lot of influence in the economic aspect of their society. Now, Peter, remember, he had gone to a non-Jewish person, had been called by a vision by God to visit someone else. And it's almost a very similar story, only remember that was Cornelius, the Roman centurion. So now you have non-Jewish people, Gentiles, who are coming to faith in Jesus as Lord in the military/political scene, and now in the economic scene. You see, it's spreading, and it's having a greater influence in society. Very fascinating how this gospel message is beginning to spread. There's one other neat thing about this story I just wanted to point out that I didn't know about until this week. At the very, very end of our passage for this Sunday, it talks about Lydia inviting them, meaning Paul and Silas, to come and stay at her home while they were in town. And this is how it ends. She prevailed upon them, meaning she kept, harping, come on, you got to stay here. Come to my house. I'll put you up for now, and you can do your thing here. And that's really what she wanted them to do, was to be able to have a home base to keep spreading the gospel. She prevailed upon them. There's only one other time in the entire New Testament that word is used. It's also used by the author of Acts, who is Luke, and it's in Luke's gospel at the very end. Remember the road to Emmaus, and the two disciples who were traveling with their heads down in the mud. They're just Jesus is dead, it's all over with, and Jesus kind of walks up alongside of them, starts talking to them, and they know something's interesting going on here, and they were stopping in Emmaus at their house, and Jesus said, okay, see you guys. And they go, no, come and have dinner with us, stay with us tonight. It's dangerous to travel at night. They prevailed upon Jesus to stay with them. You see how the gospel is just full of surprises? The gospel in Luke, and the gospel as it's being proclaimed in the book of Acts. Hey, you never know what God has in store for any of us. So it's a neat story, cool story. There's a lot more involved in there, but hey, you can only talk for so long, then I have to get off this video, right? God's blessings be with you. You can see, maybe you've been seeing the bits of sunshine pouring through on my face as I'm sitting here. It's just a glorious day. It's cool. It's about 52, 53 degrees, so it's a bit chilly, but it's beautiful. It is a gift and a blessing from God. And having said that, God's blessings be with you.